Alrighty guys, welcome back to another video. I am, for some reason, losing my voice, so bear with me here in this video. But I really wanted to film this and show you guys what I'm seeing on these CR250s as they start to get older and older and older. And this one in particular, I actually rebuilt the motor on, but we used the old water pump shaft and now it's starting to leak. So let me show you what's up. Okay, so you guys have seen this bike before in some of my videos and on Instagram. This bike has been, I've done the suspension on this bike. I've rebuilt the bottom end on this. This bike continues to rip. And what we are working on today is going to be our water pump. So what happened was when we rebuilt the bottom end, I told the customer that I could go ahead and buff and polish the shaft, and we could probably get by some time on the water pump because it was starting to leak. So we did that and it lasted for quite a while, over a year. So now we're gonna go ahead and change the shaft because as you can see, we've got engine ice in the bottom of that skid plate. So it's not a super complicated task, but there is some attention to detail here that we have to follow. So first thing we're gonna do is obviously drain the engine ice out of it. And then I think, I haven't tried it yet, but I think I can get this cover off without taking the skid plate off. It looks to me like it'll clear. So anyway, let's get this clutch side cover off and show you guys what we got to do here. Now, as for parts and what we're going to need is obviously a new water pump shaft. We've got our oil seal and our water seal, and then we've got two brand new gaskets for the actual water pump housing, and of course the clutch side gasket. So we're going to, when we take it all apart, all of this is going to get swapped out, especially this one. You always want to reuse, or sorry, you never want to reuse this one. Sometimes you can reuse the water pump gaskets, but it's always safe to go on with new ones, and they're cheap enough, you may as well. Okay, first thing we're going to do is drain our coolant. Now our coolant drain is always the one with the copper washer on it, and in this case it is a 10 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this drain bolt out before I take the cap off. That way I don't make a big mess. There we go. Once it starts flowing, go ahead and pop your radiator cap, and then it will really flow. There we go. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm laying the bike on its side. The reason being is customer just did an oil change on the bike, so what we don't want to do is dump the oil. It's brand new oil, and we can do this without actually draining the oil. So by laying the bike on its side, and I'll show you guys what I've kind of done here, use your stand, set it on its side. The pros do this all the time to change clutch packs, stuff like this, if you don't want to drain your oil. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, first thing's going to be the kickstart lever. And ooh, no impact, that was loose. Make sure to put a little blue thread locker on it next time. 12 millimeter, get that out. And then your brake lever is going to be an 8 millimeter Allen. And always get that one with a ratchet first because it is an Allen and we don't want to strip that out. So as you guys can see, we'll put a little bit of grease back on that when we go back in with it. But this bike's really clean. Kyle takes really good care of his stuff. So never have to worry about that. All right, now we're gonna start taking out our bolts to our case. Let's get our kickstart lever off here. There we go. Not too bad. And now we'll start taking out all of our case bolts. Now when we did this motor, we put a bolt kit on it. So it looks pretty dang good. And then of course, last but not least is going to be our coolant hose. Just like that. Okay, now sometimes to get this case off, it can be a little bit of a pain in the neck because the kickstart There we go. The kickstart shaft right here, or kickstart mechanism, likes to hang right there. In fact, there's a little tiny tab right here that you can use to kind of pull on the case. But anyway, regardless though, ooh, that was actually probably one of the easiest I've ever had come off. So, and pull it out. There you go. I dropped my other bolt, but that's pretty much it. Man, this motor looks super clean. And the gasket came right off because I did just rebuild this motor. I think it's got 30 hours on it since I did the full bottom end rebuild on it. So this is the subject at hand. This is what we're going to tackle today. Let's go ahead and show you how to take apart this water pump assembly. So all your bolts are out of your housing, and then, oh my goodness gracious, there we go. Wiggle it back and forth, and there are some alignment pins underneath that are holding this housing in the correct spot. That way the impeller doesn't hit it on the inside. There we go. Have a little patience and it will come off. There we go. Take your old gaskets off. The last kit we used was an all balls kit, and this time we're going back with OEM. So there's a plate here that sits in between, and it's a double gasket system on this CR250. So this is not coming off easily. So we're gonna have to take the scraper and get all this off. We'll address that in a minute. Okay, 10 millimeter. And then what we need to do is put a wrench on the back here, back this up. It also is a 10 millimeter, and zip the impeller right off. I apologize. The back is an 8 millimeter, not a 10. If I said 10, I'm pretty sure I did. So anyway, just rotate that around. Let it rest on that little dowel pin. That's what I like to do. And then lefty loosey, righty tighty. Oops. There we go. Just like that. And we'll put a little bit of blue Loctite back on that when we go on. Now, an important thing that a lot of people miss when they do this repair, and I've seen this before, is we got to make sure that that washer is in there when you go back together with it. So do not forget that washer. And then go ahead, just push on this threaded side, and out comes the shaft. And I'll show you the difference between the shaft that I have now and this old shaft. And it's pretty significant, the difference in how it looks, but honestly, it looks really good from when I polished it up. So, bummer. Okay, we got to finish taking this case apart. Go ahead, or the seals out of this case. Get your seal puller, pull your water pump seal out, and then on the back side here, we have to get this bearing out, and we're going to use a blind bearing puller. Okay, I will put a link down below as to where you guys can get your own blind bearing puller. But what this is going to allow me to yank the bearing out without tapping on it from the other side. So this bearing, it sits in here fairly easily. There's not a lot of resistance to it. So we're actually going to reuse this bearing because it is brand new from that motor build. So nice thing is we're not going to do any damage to it. If you guys do not have a blind bearing puller, these tools are worth every dime. In fact, I don't know how you would ever do motor work without one, because it's almost a necessity. You basically have to have a blind bearing puller to rebuild motors and to do, you know, even a job like this. But fairly inexpensive tool. I think I have this entire set. This one I have is a Tusk set, but I think this Tusk set is like 70 bucks or something off Rocky Mountain. So get it in there, one pop. And I didn't damage this bearing. So that's it. It doesn't sit in there super tight like I told you. And with that bearing out, we can go ahead, get in here with our seal puller and just lightly pop the oil side seal out. And there we go. Now that that is removed, we can go ahead and inspect the inside of our case right there where the bearing sits and the seals. And what we're looking at here is this is your weep hole. This is where all the coolant was coming out and where he noticed his leak. That is meant for when the coolant goes by the water seal. You can see there's a hole right there in the bottom of that channel. And whether oil or water seeps through first, it will come out of this weep hole. So it's a fail-safe so that you don't get coolant into the motor and you don't get oil into the coolant. So great design. Honda did a good job on this one. Anyway, it's common amongst all bikes. They all have a weep hole as a failure point for the seals. Okay, once you get your bearing out, go ahead and give it a good spray. Clean it off with some contact cleaner. And then go dump this bad boy in the freezer because it's going to have to be frozen in order to fit back in this case. Because we don't want to heat the case up once the seal is in there to, you know, avoid damaging the seal. But give it a spray and look at that bearing. Money. Alrighty, now for the fun part, which is clean the gasket surfaces up. I got these from Rocky Mountain. And I held off from buying them for a long time because I've had gasket scrapers all my life, different kinds. And I have one that I really love, but I just used these recently because I picked them up. And these are my new favorite gasket scrapers. They are amazing. They are hands down the best gasket scraper I've ever used. And that's saying a lot because I think I have about 10 different types. And really, I like all of them. I don't really have a, well, I say that. There's a couple I hate, but, you know, it's a tool. Every tool does something a little bit differently, even if it's the same tool. So, anyway, yep. So, yeah, I'll put a link down below where you can grab these too. So, anyway, that looks like a pretty good mating surface. And I don't have any junk left in my case. So get just a little bit of this green off here, a little bit that's left. And then we'll work on the other pieces. Time lapse. Alright guys, now that we've got this all cleaned up, ready to go back in, I wanted to show you guys the difference between the new shaft and the one that I cleaned up. So let's go ahead and measure it with our indicators. And we are at 11.98 on the oil side of the shaft and 11.70. So I'm guessing 12 and 1170 is what we should be, but 11.98 and 11.68. Okay, so let's check this old one now. See where we are. Where the oil seal is 11.96, and then this is where I polished it before, where the groove had wore in, and this is where, yep, 11.62. So 0.06 of a millimeter is all it took for this to wear out and leak. So you can see the lines where the water seal had been riding and where the oil seal had been riding. And what I did was I'd clean this up and clean that up really well. And it lasted a long time. So, but once your tolerance wears out, there's nothing you can do about it. The seal can no longer do its job. Okay, let's go back together with this bad boy. So cool thing about Honda with their seals compared to the others, they come pre-lubricated. So they do have a little bit of lube on these ready to go, but they are not lubricated on the outside. So we're going to go ahead and put a little assembly lube on there. Some Maxima assembly lube. Smells like cinnamon. It's so good. Peppermint? Cinnamon? I don't know. It smells freaking good though, I'll tell you that. So go ahead and put just a tiny bit of assembly lube on there. And that will help the seal slide right in its hole. if you know what I'm talking about. Now, on the seal, let me talk about this. That is going to be the oil side. That is going to be the water side. So, smaller seal, you can see there's two different sizes, goes in the inside of the case with the lip facing out. You always want to make sure the lip is facing out or you're going to have a bad day. And you can usually just press these right in. And she's being, oh yeah, about perfect right there. So go ahead and push that in, and there we go. That seal is in. Now, time for our bearing. Let's go get out of the freezer. Let's see if it falls right in like it should. It might take a little bit of coercion to go in, but come on, come on. Little baby brass hammer. There it is, tone changed, and like a glove. So, go ahead and put just a little bit of assembly lube in there. That is not the conventional way of putting a bearing in, but this bearing, I didn't damage a single thing. And now the bearing is lubed and ready to go. Now let's flip around and do the other side. The other side is going to be our water seal. Again, just a little bit of assembly lube, just a little bit. This one I'm going to have to get a socket for and just kind of press it in nice and evenly. Just because it's a little bit bigger seal. So, ooh, actually, that one's going in fairly easily, but I'm still going to have to get a socket. The old 19mm socket seems to be the one. And we're just going to go ahead and press this in nice and evenly. Oh, come on. Again, the lip faces out. You do not want to have the lip facing in, or else your seal will not seal anything. And there we go. Money. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is lube up the shaft of our water pump gear. And then we're going to go in from the backside and go right through our oil seal and then up through our water seal, and then wipe off the little bit of excess grease that comes out from that pre-lubricated seal. Put your copper washer back on, and then before we do the impeller, we got to make sure we put blue Loctite on this bad boy because we don't want it coming back off. Now, next question is, what is torque on this? No idea. Snug it up. Snug it up. So, get our 8mm, hold it on the back side there, and then I just take my T-handle and I snug it up as tight as I can. Goodness. And there we go. That little bit of slop in there is normal. When this goes back on, if you remember, there was a copper washer that goes over this as well, and that will take up that tolerance. Before we go back on with our gasket here, we want to put a little bit of assembly grease on it, because if it ever needs to come back off again, the gasket will not stick to the case, but it will seal amazing. Okay, for the sake of just not boring you to death, I decided to go ahead and clean up this surface. I got a tiny bit of oil drip on there though. Yeah, that'll be all right. Beforehand and now, we're gonna go ahead and put our clutch side gasket on, lay it on the dowel there. It'll line up perfectly. And do not forget this little copper washer right here. That will cause you some major, major heartache if you do. Trust me. And then take your case. We've got everything put together, everything good to go. And layer right on top. And when you get to the water pump gear going on, you may have to rotate it just the slightest amount. And this hose always gets in my way and I forget. There we go. go ahead, rotate it just the tiniest bit, and it will fall in. Just, oop, I'm missing it. There we go. Just like so. Okay, let's start dropping our bolts back in. Now, when we do this, I'm going to show you guys a little trick of the trade here and something that you guys need to know. These bolts, they will all stick up about the same amount, and it's, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or so, not quite a 1/2 inch. And if they don't, then they're in the wrong spot. So you want to go ahead and put them in by hand. See, like that one doesn't fit there. It goes there. So this one, nope, it don't fit there. It goes there. This one goes there. And then these longer bolts will go through the case like that. So that one's good. And then, of course, we have a couple more of these shorties. Go over here. That's that oddball one there. Anyway, get your bolts in the right spot before you go and suck them down. And then you don't have to worry about the possibility of stripping your case. That's a bad deal. So this one actually goes over here. Yep, this one goes here. There we go. Now to go back on with our water pump gaskets themselves. Put one on there. And then get your little spacer plate. And put one on there. And get your second gasket and put it on there. And I like to do this after the case is on the bike because it's a lot easier to just align everything when it's laying down sideways. And then, of course, you know, put your housing cover back on. Just like that. And put a bolt in. Whoa, see how that one hit the bottom and did not? Here, let's use our magnet and get it back out. There we go. So that one clearly doesn't go there. Does it go there? It does. Does this one go there? Ooh, no, a little short. Ooh, oh yeah, it does go there. And then this one goes there. And then this one must be our long guy. There we go. And snug these up. Okay, back on with our Kickstarter. I think it goes on about right there, which it does. So, yes, actually, yes it does. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and slide it on. And we want a nice snug fit. And before we go ahead and put our bolt in, because we don't want it to back out like it was, put a little blue Loctite on it. Rotate that over though, and then give her a little zip all the way on. And that blue Loctite will make somebody very happy. That's the wrong size. It's actually a 12mm. You'd think I'd know this by now, but of course not. There we go, just like so. And then take our brake lever, flip it back over, and before we put it on, we're gonna go ahead and wipe the nasty old grease off that I put on this last time and put some fresh on there. So we want to make sure this thing stays nice and movable. So the grease, you know, it's like anything, it wears out, it falls out, it gets washed out. So we just want to clean it up like that, and then take our Maxima waterproof grease and put a little bit of fresh on there. And that will make this lever work like new again. Drop it in. And then get our 8mm, of course. And this will be the last thing. Oh, nope, I already forgot something. I'll show you here in just a second. Let's get this in. Almost forgot. I almost forgot to put our hose back on our water pump. And just snug that up. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then, last but not least, as I said before when I took it off, is the hose. Okay. I'm gonna be stubborn. I'll have to use a screwdriver. Do the old wrap around here. There we go. Works every time. And bring our clamp back down. Just like so. Let's tip it up, fill it with coolant, see if it leaks. I'm sorry, that wasn't very confident of me. What I meant to say was, let's put coolant back in it and see that it doesn't leak, because it ain't gonna leak. We do things right. We do things once. We get it straight. Now, we're gonna have to put a little more in than what we took out, because we leaked a lot, quite a bit actually. So there we go. Now, as far as like bleeding the system goes, there's not a lot to it. You know, this isn't like a snow bike where you've got a bunch of hoses and things like that. You got to worry about thermostat. On these dirt bikes, really fill them up kind of slow. Let them burp, let them get all that liquid out, and then roll the bike over before starting it, and tip it left, tip it right. Just let the air kind of evacuate, make its way up, let gravity do its thing. The air bubbles come up, and then you'll be good. Fire it up, let it warm up, let it get up to operating temp. Once it gets up to operating temp, shut it off, let it cool down. Once it cools down, pop your top, check your coolant level, and then you're good to go. Okay, there we are. We are topped off. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up, leave the cap off, and then we'll let it bubble up, let it do its thing, let it evacuate the air, and then we'll check it in a second. Alrighty, that wraps up our 2-stroke CR250 water pump rebuild, and no leaks. Coolant's topped off. Everything is ready to rip. We're gonna go give this bike back to Kyle. He lives just down the road from me, and he is gonna go tear it up tomorrow. So, what has he got on it? 22.8 hours since I did the full motor rebuild on it. He did the top end, I did the bottom end, but man, the bike rips, and it is clean. Looks really, really good. Really well taken care of, and I hope you guys are doing the same to your bike. Okay, guys, I really hope you enjoyed that video. I'm sweating a little bit. It's a little hot out here in the garage. Summer's almost over, but the next video I'm going to post will be a walk around on the Gas MC450, sitting right over there. That is my new daily. I love that bike. I'm completely done with the build on it, minus the seat cover. Probably do a seat cover soon because the one that's on is kind of crappy. But other than that, I absolutely love that bike. I'm loving how it handles. I'm loving the power. It's an amazing motorcycle. So we'll do a walk around of that. I'll show you guys what I did to build it and mod it and make it my own. And until then, check the links out in the bottom. That will get you all the tools, chemicals, everything that I use to do this job. And subscribe if you haven't. Give me a like, helps my videos out a lot. glad to be back. See you guys in the next one. Thanks.
Yeah.